Good morning, everyone. Saturday, May the 9th, 2020. And my name is Rob Smith. I'm one of the members of the board of directors, current serving president of the board of directors, and I'm having my coffee. I know not everybody's a Rob fan, and not everybody is a fan of these videos. So if somebody wants to take the time to translate this into a quick written update, I'll be happy to take that written update and send it out through other means. But for me, on the fly, this is an easy way to communicate with people. Plus, I really like the fact that you can see me and hear what I'm saying and the way I'm saying it so that it doesn't get misinterpreted. So I do like communicating this way. Sorry, the coffee sound will stop in a second here. Anyways, quick update because of some stuff that was going on one of the community discussion boards, the Amending Friends. There were questions being asked about amendments to the bylaws, the CCNRs, and that kind of thing. And specifically, people are asking about making some provisions or some changes to the way that the community, well, currently we don't govern at all the rentals. So they want to know, is there a way that we could govern rentals within our community? And I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I'm actually a fan of that because many HOAs do that. Many HOAs have that as a part of their rules already, and we don't. Enforcement can be difficult. Coffee will stop in just a second. Sorry, I'm doing a Keurig, which is kind of a quick way this morning. Anyways, many communities do that, and that's not a bad thing. So the thing is, you have to have discussion about everything. So let's call this the first piece of the discussion, and I highly encourage you to put your thoughts out there and let people know, because the board of directors will be discussing this issue, not just necessarily of how to amend the rules here and everything, but what does it equal out to? How do we get it done if you want to make an amendment and that kind of thing? So I want to give you a little bit of information. It's going to take a few minutes, so bear with me and let me give you what I've got. So the first thing that we need to do anytime we want to make an amendment of some sort is we have to have a discussion that includes what will the amendment itself look like. So what I mean by that is, if we said to everybody right now, hey, should we, the homeowners association, and when I talk about the HOA, I'm not talking about the board of directors of the management company. This is usually a concept that gets a little tricky with people. So I want to make sure you understand, first of all, what I'm talking about when I say the HOA. When we, the HOA, I'm talking about you as an owner within the community. You own your home here in Almond Glen, whether it be a townhome or a single family home. And when I'm talking about the owners, I'm talking about whoever owns that home on the deed, if it's a couple, or if it's just a single owner, regardless, each home has one vote. So if there's two people who live in the home, they both own it, and they're married and they're on the deed, or even if they're not married, but they're both on the deed, it's one vote. So we have 295 homes in our neighborhood, which means we have 295 people who can vote during elections or for amendments or whatever. Now, generally speaking, we listen obviously to anybody and everybody. When you come to a community meeting, if there's a husband and a wife sitting in the audience, and the husband stands up and wants to give his opinion on something, then the wife wants to stand up and give a dissenting opinion, that would be fine. We'll listen to both of you. And then we may make our judgment on what we're going to do as a board based off of the wife, or maybe we listen to the husband in this case. It just depends on who kind of sways the board better. So, but now if we called for a vote, the husband and the wife are going to have to work out which way they're voting. So that's because it's only one per home. So hopefully that makes sense. So when I'm talking about the HOA, I'm talking about the community. So we as an HOA currently don't really have any control that I can remember of rentals whatsoever. I think the only thing that was ever mentioned in any of the documents, and it's been a while since I've sat and read them, but if I remember, there was some sort of a moratorium on initial rentals, I think. Like I said, I look at a lot of HOA documents actually, and I've looked at a lot of HOA documents over the years, so I might be getting something confused in my brain. But if I remember correctly, there was a provision that said something about you couldn't rent for the first year when the community first started. So we're long past that, as I understand it. One of the things we run into, though, is we need to, before we go down any path of it, we need to agree on the language. So as a community, we may say to the community, to the HOA, to the membership, hey, do you guys want to have some control over rentals? And 100% of the community may say yes. We absolutely, as a homeowners association, should have our control over rentals. And we go, great, okay. So let's put a rule in place that says that you have to have that no more than 20% of the neighborhood can be rentals. That's townhomes and single family together, because remember, we're one HOA. So no more than 20% of the neighborhood can be rentals. And we also add to that provision, you have to have it approved by the HOA that you're going to a rental. So everybody's going to have a rental, has to register with us. And then if we'd find out that they weren't, we'd have to go down some sort of enforcement process. So the problem with them is not everybody may think that's good. Somebody else may say, well, hold up, 20% is a little high. Well, let's go with 10%. And then somebody else steps in and says, no, I think 25% makes sense. That's what my last community did. And then somebody else says, I don't think we should have to register necessarily. See what I mean? Not everybody will necessarily agree on the language. So the first thing we have to do is we'd have to agree on the language of the amendment. And usually we do that through a back and forth process where you lay out an amendment. You know, the president of the association may draft an amendment. I may say the homeowners association will have control of all rentals throughout the neighborhood. You know, the number of rentals, the number should be fixed at 20%, and rentals have to be registered with the homeowners association. And then somebody may argue back and forth, and then we change it from 20% to 25%. You know, you argue through each piece of that language until you get that. Then once we get the language put together, we then have to bring it to the community for a vote. Now that's where it gets difficult. Even if everybody's on board with something and they all agree, even if everybody has an opinion one way or another, it's difficult to get the number of votes we need. My understanding, again, if I recall correctly, we need a supermajority, and for our community, if I remember correctly, a supermajority to amend the CC&Rs, which I think the CC&Rs would be the document we need to amend to cover this particular thing, because they're the things that control a lot of, you know, how your home looks and whether or not you can, you know, put a retaining wall up around your house or whatever. So CC&Rs, if we're going to update those, if I remember correctly, it's 75% of the neighborhood. So we have 295 homes, 64 townhomes, 231 single-family homes, 295 homes times 75%. It's like 221.25, I think. So obviously we can't get a quarter of a person. So we need 222, if I'm doing my math right, 222 positive votes for whatever amendment we were to put in place. So we have to get the language laid out. We have to get a vote. First of all, we have to set up a meeting for that, where we're going to have a meeting to vote on it. Now, we can put the language together before that. Then we have to have a special meeting. So we send out notice of a special meeting. We have to have a quorum for the special meeting, which I think a special meeting quorum is only like 10%. It might be 20%, but I think it's 10% of the community. From there, we have a special meeting. If everybody shows up to the special meeting, then we have the vote. If we have a vote and we get 222 positive votes that say, yes, we want this amendment, then we can go down the process. Now, I was trying to think of what else I would know. Oh, that's when I say people vote, I mean in person or by proxy. So you could go out and collect proxies from, you know, one person could go out and collect 221 proxies from homes throughout the neighborhood, and then that one person could walk into the meeting and say, we vote yes, and boom, it's done. Then we go to the lawyers and we have it all done. And the numbers could be all over the place, but I think we just talked about doing an amendment for something if we wanted to at one of our last meetings. And I want to say that another community was going through the legal process to do amendments, and the overall bill at the end was somewhere in the 10 grand mark or something like that, which I know sounds crazy. So don't hold me to that number. I guess don't hold me to too many of the numbers, since I am trying to, it's Saturday morning, I am trying to remember off the top of my head a lot of stuff. But I was reading through the stuff from last night on Amending Friends, and I don't think anybody is particularly trying to attack any one person, but this isn't the first time rentals have come up. We have people who do rentals within the community. We have businesses that I think it's there's a I forget the name of the company, Rentals Across America or Rent Across America, something like that. They own several homes throughout our neighborhood. We have people who do what are those things called? Airbnb. We have Airbnbs throughout the neighborhood. We have townhomes that I couldn't tell you the percentage of the townhomes that are rentals. And I've had people ask me before. And that would be the next problem we run into is enforcement. And it's also a problem with votes, really, as a way to go. And so when we mail out a notice about a meeting or we're going to do a vote or something like that, we generally mail that notice to the home, to the physical address. If we have the actual address of an owner who lives out of state on file, which that exists within our community, several people within our community who own the home don't actually live in our state even. So we would mail it to them. But if we don't have anything other than just the registered address and the name of the homeowner, maybe they've got a home in Nebraska and they also have a home here in Almond Glen and their name is on the deed here, so this is their address in Almond Glen. And they rent, throughout the year for some reason or partially, maybe they do a partial rent or maybe they're doing Airbnb. So we would send the notice to their home. So I think the first hurdle we're gonna run into is not everybody who owns property within Almond Glen is gonna actually physically get their vote in hand. They're not gonna get the notice. And then obviously the businesses that own rental properties in the neighborhood, they want zero restrictions. So I don't think you're gonna get any of them to vote at all, but or positively. So there are some hurdles to getting something like that voted through. Anything that we want to amend, honestly, because 75% is very difficult. I mean, at our highest time when we had the most number of votes ever, when I forget how many votes I got the year I got reelected, where we had the biggest turnout. We still didn't have 75% of our vote represented, and we had a lot of people vote. So it's not an easy process, and that's why I'm putting this out today, is so that people can understand the process and you can ask questions, have a discussion about it, that kind of thing. So again, if there's somebody who wants to take time to quickly summarize what I'm saying here into a written version, and I see that popped up, if you want to tag me on it on Facebook, if I see that written version, I'll throw it in the notes of this, and I'll also share it out, as long as it's somewhat factual to what I'm actually saying. So it's not an easy process. It would have some challenges, and I think the enforcement after the fact is going to be difficult. It's always hard to enforce anything within our homeowners association just because we have to go through a lot of legal process to do it, and we also would need to know. That was the other part I was saying. My mind kind of wanders. I don't make any notes for these. It's literally as though we sat down at a table and you said, "Hey, Rob, can I ask you a question?" That's the way I make these videos. So enforcement after the fact is going to be kind of a struggle, because you are going to have to find out that somebody has a rental that we don't know about, and then we're going to have to reach out to them and say, "Hey, you need to register your rental," and that kind of thing. And I don't know as far as legally and that would be part of what our legal fees would be. We have to have some lawyers look into and come back to us and say, can we even legally control rentals to some degree? I mean, can we make them register with us? Can we make them tell us who their tenants are so that we can reach their tenants in case of an emergency? There's a lot of things. I mean, I don't even have the phone numbers for I don't have phone numbers, email addresses for everybody who owns a home in the neighborhood. A lot of times if somebody says to me, "Hey, do you know who lives at this house over here?" I mean, I check the county website. The HOA does keep a record of it, but it's only as updated as the latest legal documentation we got from whoever bought and sold that property. So there are struggles, there are difficulties. I don't want to go over 15 minutes, so that's pretty much it. I hope that helps and fills in some of the blanks. It maybe it filled in some blanks for some other things too, but questions or anything like that, you can email amendglenhoa@gmail.com. You can also message us through Facebook. You can I think the comments section I think is turned on the website, so there's that. And then you can reply to this here. So that's enough. My dogs are done. Have a good Saturday.